Hey, what's this photo all about? Planning to do something you can't tell your husband about. It's got George written on it. I confronted my wife Samantha with this, and to my surprise, she was brazen about it. My name is Keith. I'm 32. I work in sales at a travel agency. I married Samantha, the receptionist, 3 years ago after a relentless pursuit. She was my pride, a model-like wife, 5 years younger than me. But my job involved a lot of overtime and business trips, and gradually she seemed to grow dissatisfied. Eventually, I found out that my beloved wife had fallen for a young personal trainer. And there was a photo of the personal trainer and her, left out in the open on the table. I tried to wake her up, getting angry, persuading, talking things out. I thought I did everything I could, but Samantha wouldn't listen. To top it off, she snapped back, saying she didn't want an old man like me. So, we ended up getting a divorce. Knowing her true feelings, I struggled to recover. How did Samantha and I end up like this? Maybe she started to find life with me boring. Even after marriage, I was always busy with overtime and business trips. Essentially, Samantha lived like she was single. And without kids, there wasn't much housework needed. Above all, Samantha had little to no interest in household chores or supporting my work. Early on, she decided to get a part-time job at a clothing company and said, "Keith, I'm busy too, so let's do our own thing." Stunned, but feeling guilty for not being around much, I swallowed my opinions. Samantha went out to work part-time with vigor and was frequently away from home. Since we hadn't been blessed with children yet, I thought it was better than her being home alone. Her clothes and even her appearance began to change after she had been working part-time for a while. Short skirts, heavy makeup. Was this really just for ladies' nights out? My bag feeling proved right. Samantha had been lured out for drinks by her coworkers and ended up fascinated by a young personal trainer. It was too late when I realized. I found his business card after returning from a business trip. I pressed her, demanding, "Explain to me what's going on here." She retorted, "What do you mean? What's going on? You're always away, and living together isn't fun at all, so I'm just having fun on my own." Shocked, I reminded her, "We're married. You're my wife. You shouldn't be playing around like this." But her response was shocking. "Everyone said to choose a husband for his money. I'm young and pretty, and the thought of spending my life with an old man like you is horrifying." Hearing Samantha's true feelings was like a punch to the gut. I thought we were in love and got married, respecting her opinions and cherishing her as my wife. But the Samantha in front of me was like a stranger. To her, I must have been nothing more than an ATM for her to spend the time with the guy. We ended up getting a divorce by mutual agreement. No alimony was involved. Because unbeknownst to me, our bank account was drained. Samantha had poured everything into the guy, leaving our finances almost at zero. I felt empty even as I went through the divorce proceedings. Where did I go wrong? Should I have quit my job for one that let me spend more time with Samantha? Should I have bought more presents, said I love you more? Or should I have worked on my appearance, to be a man Samantha could be proud of? No matter how much I tried to figure it out, I, who had hardly any experience with women, just couldn't understand. Samantha was incredibly thoughtful and bright in personality. In our social group, she was the type everyone adored, and being with her always lifted my spirits. She was slim and model-like, the complete opposite of my average build, and always looked much younger than me. Samantha was undoubtedly the wife I was proud of. But then she called me an old man. While finalizing divorce procedures, I felt like I was branding my life with failure, and honestly, it got me down. Thus, as a man who lost his wife to a young man, I embarked on a life with a divorce under my belt. Honestly, my daily life didn't change much after the divorce. Samantha had always insisted I do my share of the housework, and with constant dining out, the kitchen stayed clean. But the room, devoid of Samantha's belongings, felt desolate, like a monochrome photo, reminding me of my newfound singleness. Unable to recover from the shock of divorce, I threw myself into work to forget Samantha. I eagerly took on sudden business trips and overtime. Then, a colleague named Emily, recently assigned to my department, said, "You'll flip if you keep pushing yourself like this." I used to be the same, placing a coffee on my desk. Her casual kindness meant the world to me, especially in my post-divorce gloom. I thanked her. "I really appreciate your thoughtfulness. Please feel free to ask me anything if you're unsure about the new department." Wanting to return the favor, I took on supporting her work. Turns out she was looking for someone approachable to ask questions. Emily and I started talking several times a day at work, and as we got comfortable, we began having lunch together. Our conversations over meals were surprisingly enjoyable. I loved traveling and spas, and shockingly, so did she. We started visiting popular spas on weekends together. Of course, separately for men and women, but having someone to dine with afterward was a real joy for a divorced man. We'd stop by a bar on the way back, cheerfully toasting. We indulged in drinks and food, liberating our work stress as if competing. Eventually, we began sharing more personal stories, naturally drifting into our pasts. I hesitated to talk about my previous marriage, but something made me want to confide in Emily. Actually, I was married before, but my wife fell for a young guy and left me. Said she didn't want to be with an old man like me. We got divorced just like that. To my surprise, Emily revealed, "I actually had a thing for a young guy in the past. The work targets were so tough, just like your ex-wife." I was speechless, and she said, "Don't worry about me, I've quit that." There was a moment I realized a guy was saying the same sweet things to another woman as he did to me. That woke me up, and luckily I didn't sink too deep. I hope the other woman has also woken up by now. She shrugged playfully. Seeing her like that, I couldn't help but laugh. No one is 100% correct in life. We learn from our regrets and mistakes, moving forward step by step. Watching Emily, I thought of Samantha for the first time in a while. Our outings and sharing of pasts made Emily and me open up to each other, eventually becoming important partners in both work and life. 2 years after divorcing Samantha, I remarried, and it was to Emily. We had no fancy wedding or honeymoon, but I was content. I had learned from my last marriage that it is not the form of the marriage that is important, but the day-to-day content of married life. Having both failed once, we made an effort to support and appreciate each other. As working spouses, we could easily drift apart. So we made sure to have breakfast together every morning and kept communication going. It was also my way of making amends to my ex-wife, Samantha. I wanted to make Emily happy, the way I couldn't make Samantha. Finally, I could reflect calmly on my marriage with Samantha. On our first wedding anniversary with Emily, we had our ups and downs but managed to come this far together. I splurged on a reservation at an upscale French restaurant for the occasion. "Are you sure we should go somewhere so fancy? I'm so excited." Seeing my wife so happy made me truly joyful. We're both usually so busy with work that there's hardly any time to enjoy a leisurely meal. Together, we looked forward to savoring fine dining to our heart's content. It was supposed to be the perfect anniversary for Emily and me. We had reserved a private room and were relaxing with an aperitif as we waited for our meal to be served. Then, "Excuse me, I've brought the appetizer." The moment I saw the server bringing the dish, my body froze. "Is that Samantha?" I muttered in a barely audible whisper, and she, too, stood there in shock, holding the tray of appetizers. "Keith." As I tried to continue speaking to Samantha, Emily exclaimed in surprise, "Samantha, really?" She called out to her in the same manner I had. Why does my wife, Emily, know my ex-wife, Samantha? My mind was filled with question marks. Emily, Samantha, and I, none of us knew what to say, and we fell into silence. Samantha still looked young and beautiful, and the elegant uniform suited her well. Though she was surprised to see me, her expression froze even more upon seeing Emily with me. Then, with a strained voice, she said to Emily, "You're the one from that time." Samantha then looked back and forth between us with a look of disbelief. "I thought you had given up on George, and now you've run off with some rich old man." She threw these harsh words at Emily and me. Emily, the target of Samantha's attack, turned pale and fell silent. As I was about to retort on her behalf, Emily gestured to me to stop and said, "I chose Keith because he's always kind and treasures me, sees me as a woman, not just a client. I, who was so unfulfilled, have finally found a place where I can feel at peace. I understand the attraction to George, but leaving someone who truly cares for you is a foolish choice you've made." Of course, Samantha was furious at being lectured. "What are you talking about? You're just a loser who couldn't get George. I'm different from you," she retorted sharply, then slammed the appetizer onto the table and stormed out of the room. Stunned by Samantha's outburst, Emily and I quietly began to eat the appetizer. I then asked Emily, "Would you mind telling me how you and Samantha knew each other?" Emily hesitantly replied, "Well, Samantha and I were both financially supporting the same personal trainer, George. We spent a lot to him. When asked, we offered money so that he can open his own gym, but I overheard him telling Samantha the same thing he told me, that he wanted to be with me. That's when I woke up and was able to return to my true self." Ironically, it was his insincere words to Samantha that had also awakened Emily. From her behavior, it seemed Samantha had not yet woken up from her obsession with the trainer. I felt a concern for her, speaking little. Our first wedding anniversary with Emily, supposed to be a joyous occasion, had unexpectedly become a time to reflect on my past marriage. The course menu that followed was delicious, but predictably, Samantha didn't return to serve us. However, Samantha's hurtful remark about me being an old man reopened old wounds in my heart. I wondered inwardly if someone like me could really make anyone happy. Feeling downcast, when Emily asked, "You're not eating, is something wrong?" I replied with self-doubt, "Maybe if you weren't with someone like me, you wouldn't have to hear such awful things from Samantha on our anniversary. I'm sorry, our married life must seem so dull, right?" Emily shook her head softly and said, "I chose you, Keith, not some young flashy guy. You're genuine and substantial. Being here with you today is the happiest day of my life." Tears streaming down my face, I nodded in agreement. Grateful for having her in my life, we thoroughly enjoyed our meal and paid the bill. Before leaving, I approached the reception. "I'd like to thank the waitress who served us first today." Reluctantly emerging from the kitchen, Samantha listened as I said, "I've always wanted to apologize to you. I'm sorry for leaving you alone in the apartment, for refusing your home-cooked meals because of work, for not properly acknowledging your struggles. You must have felt out of place in our home. I regret not realizing that as your husband, but I'm sure someone will understand and appreciate you. Samantha, please find happiness this time." As I bowed deeply, I heard sobbing. Looking up, I saw Samantha crying like a child. And then, from behind me, I heard the sound of someone sniffling. Behind me, Emily was also weeping. Realizing my past mistakes and weaknesses through 2 marriages, I had finally expressed my long-held feelings to Samantha. Resolved not to make anyone cry again, Emily and I headed home. "Mom, is that all the stuff I'm taking to daycare?" I asked Emily, who was busy getting our child ready. Since then, Emily and I had been blessed with a child, and we were leading a busy life as working parents. Though I try hard in parenting, I'm often scolded by Emily for being unhelpful. But as a husband and father, I'm striving more than ever for my family. And Emily, no matter how busy, always makes sure to pack a lunch for me. It's my supportive wife and lovely child that keep me going. I'm determined to cherish Emily, who fell in love with me for who I am, for the rest of my life.